Hello, my spooky friends. It is Stacy. I hope you're doing well and having a fantastic day. So in today's video, I am using airfoam clay to sculpt Eligos from Ash vs. Evil Dead TV series. I am a huge Bruce Campbell fan, and I love Ash Williams and his character. And I do love the original and all the remakes of the Evil Dead. And in this video, I am sculpting over a look that I've already done, showing you how to use some of the products that you have used in the past to make it a bit easier and save you some time and money. So let's just go ahead and get into the tutorial. To begin, I'm using aluminum foil for spacers around the eyes, nose, and the chin. Airfoam clay, once dry, is very fragile. This will stop the movement of your jaw area and it will not set against the skin. It will be more comfortable and it also will not sweat. I tape that down with some masking tape. And then for the actual mask of the Eligos, I'm using an old look from my Rotted Mummy. This is a cotton and liquid latex front face with a ball cap in the back. And I went in and I'm using toothpicks for spacers to make sure I have the area that I need to see through this mask. And in order for airfoam clay to come off easily off of a sculpt, I use aluminum foil and plastic to build up and to sculpt against. The jawline requires it to be protruding very far past my own jawline, so I'm just using more aluminum foil and masking tape to get the shape that I need onto my sculpting cast. Using airfoam clay, I knead it to get it more pliable and warm it up by stretching it apart several times, rolling it in to a thin piece to lay over the top of the nose. So this will cover the bridge and go out toward the cheek area. Now, several things you need to know when using airfoam clay is that you need to cover it up like most clay. That way it doesn't dry out. And for the teeth today, I'm using Polymer Plastic. You can warm these up in 140 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. They will go from white to clear. Once they are clear, you can use this to create shapes. You can see I am actually using a pair of scissors to cut off the excess and to shape teeth the best I can. I need 8 for the top, 10 for the bottom, and the 2 coming out of the jaw. If you would like to see other things I created with Polymer Plastic, I will have that link for you in the description below. This is the Poly Plastics brand, and I've had this container for quite a while, for about 3 years. I think it's a good investment if you're looking to work with Polymer Plastic. Also, Polymer Plastics do come in several different colors, but I choose to use white so I can have the color that I want later. And I'm taking a tool from a carving kit to get the cavity inside those lower teeth for the jaw, and you have some time to manipulate that before it turns white. You see it start to turn white, you could dip it back into the water and have it be a little bit more malleable. Now going in, I place these teeth into the portion up underneath the nose that lays across the bridge, and I am taking a tool and using that to manipulate the gum area to push that around the top portion of the teeth. So I'm moving the clay, and if you need help moving the clay, you can use water and a tool or your finger. You will have some time to manipulate that before it dries. I am using a small tool to push details into the clay. I'm going to add more details later, but I am using more airfoam clay to go over the aluminum foil for the bottom of the jaw. This is where the smaller teeth are going to set into this jawline, so give it just a nice little shelf on that aluminum foil to embed those teeth into. And using more airfoam clay to get the shape, pushing that into the bottom portion of the jaw. And if you need to take care of lines, you can use your finger and smooth that out with some water. Here I am placing the teeth into the bottom of the jawline, pushing them in a pretty good bit so I can get the gum area to go up over and secure those teeth. But if they do fall out, it's okay to use some glue to push those back in. Just don't use super glue because it will begin to melt the foam. Using smaller strips that I rolled out, I am going over to the top portion, pushing it over the bridge of the nose, and I continue to do this and add it all the way to the very top of the forehead. This is where it's going to meet the other part of the sculpt from the mask I used from the mummy, being sure to get that rolled in and making sure I have enough space with those toothpicks for the eyes. It's going to be very important to be able to see. And I left the process in to show you the kneading and the rolling of the airfoam clay. It does take a little bit of time, but it's absolutely worth it. It's easy to use. Now, putting more strips over to where it meets the very top of this liquid latex and the bald cap, and I'm going to smooth that out with my finger later. So right now, do not worry about the shapes of the folds, because you have an opportunity to be able to manipulate that a little bit later on. But I connect the top of these smaller strips down to the jawline, and now I'm beginning to incorporate the top of the latex into the clay so it becomes one piece and you do not have to glue anything. I absolutely love the Ash vs. Evil Dead series. I love the character Ash Williams, played by Bruce Campbell, and that line when they rise Eligos into the library. He says, "First of all, you don't look anything like your picture, so you might want to update that." I just love the quirkiness of the character, and I'm going to meet Bruce Campbell this January in New Orleans. So if you are a fan like I am and you want to see that footage, please consider subscribing, because I will have a video about being at the expo. And going in with a bigger piece of airfoam clay, I'm manipulating the jaw, so I'm connecting the rest of it to the sides of the cheeks and pushing in those teeth that I created with the polymer plastic. With the tool, I'm making sure to secure that gum line by pushing the clay up to the bottom of the teeth and going back over the top for that one final strip that goes over the bridge of the nose, and adding more detail into the clay itself. If you're looking for some good tools to use, I will link this into the description below. It's good for work and clay. It comes with some brushes that also have some rubber ends that help manipulate and move clay a little bit easier and not destroy detail. Going in with my fingers and some water, I begin to smooth out the very top, because the folds of the Eligos face is only so far up onto the forehead, and I secure the bottom portion and push it together with a little bit of water so you get that crease but not a complete separation, so it looks like one piece. I go in and create a jaw line up into the bottom so you can see that it's more teeth. This is what's in the reference photo, and this is the rubber end of the tool set. I am using another strip of clay to build that up onto the forehead, and I begin to smooth that out with my thumb and some water, and adding more texture and details in the gum area. I roll small little balls of clay and stick them randomly according to the reference photo onto the gum line. I am using Oatmeal and liquid latex to create the wounds that are on Eligos's head. In most of these shots that you see in the reference photos, this is a technique that they use on The Walking Dead to create bite wounds, and I'm using it today to secure any area that I don't have airfoam clay and liquid latex to secure it. You'll see that there is a seam and a little bit of breaking around the ball cap, so I'm using this as an opportunity to create wounds and to secure areas that I don't want to use airfoam clay. This is a good time saver, and it's a really good technique to fill in gaps, give you height without you needing to sculpt that in at the time. So if you have wounds that can be laid on top of a sculpt, I prefer to do that. I like to save time and money, and I hope you do too. So I hope you're enjoying this tutorial today. Now that the sculpt is dry, I'm using water-based paint where I mixed red and white to give me a pink gum area, making sure I work it through the teeth and up underneath. Don't worry about details that don't get painted, as like in the bottom jaw, you'll have what we call in the industry holidays, where there is gaps and not full bleed of color, and that's where you're going to add the other details. So don't worry about painting the areas that are lacking, because you're going to add more detail later. And for the folds in the makeup, I am mixing acrylic paints. You can find these at Walmart. They run about 50 to 60 cents a piece. And I mixed gray, blue, and a little bit of white to give me that bluish gray color. And I'm using Nair Cosmetics brushes. They hold a lot more paint, and they are easy to clean up, and they just glide across textures and surfaces such as the wounds and the sculpt itself. I really do love these brushes, so I will have that link below if you're interested in checking them out. When painting, I will often switch out brushes, using smaller brushes for finer details. And also, if you're having a hard time being balanced and your arm is shaky, you can always use your arm to secure your painting hand. This is why I prefer to use the Narrative Cosmetic brushes, because they are geared toward the special effects industry. So they are used for painting, fine detail, skin, and texture. Now I am making the wounds all one color, and I'm going to add blood later, but I'm going in with my alcohol-based paints, mixing a little bit of white and yellow to get those teeth a little bit more gnarly instead of being stark white. I did have to refrain myself a little bit because I got the bad habit of making some really dark, dirty, nasty looking teeth, and they're not that dark for Eligos. So I did have to restrain myself a little bit, but I go in with some red and making sure that I get that gum line in the teeth area a little bit darker, and always using a reference photo. We'll make sure that your design stays cohesive to the character, especially when it's this specific. Going in with some more alcohol paints, I paint in the areas that did not get the true pink color to make sure that the details come out. And with alcohol paint, you can make it as thin and thick, so you can change the intensity of the color. And if you don't like the color, you can always tap that color around to bleed it out and to get it a little bit more buff and to get rid of fine lines. To bring out details in the folds of this look, I'm going in with alcohol paints and going through the fine lines of the wrinkles that I placed with the air foam clay. Now with a toothbrush and a mix of red and black, I am going in and flicking this onto the area of the wounds I created with the oatmeal and the liquid latex. And I'm also tapping that around the gum area to create more detail. Going in with a glossy top coat, I go over the teeth area, getting them a nice coat of a gloss color. Now, Eligos is seen in Ash vs. Evil Dead as a little bit more wet and also dry, so whichever you choose to wear this makeup, it is going to give that glossy, good effect on the teeth. I go in with gelatin that I already had mixed, and this is a little bit darker, so I'm pushing that into the deeper portions around the oatmeal and the liquid latex. This is going to keep it shiny, so you don't have to use actual wet blood for this look. So if you're going to be out in this look all night long, I recommend that you use the color gelatin for that. If you're needing help on how to mix, store, and color gelatin, I will link that into the description below. I have a full tutorial for that. And I did clear coat mine for a glossy effect. I used a spray can of Rust-Oleum. It is time to apply the mask. I am going to put this on, and I'm going to mark out with a NYX white jumbo stick the area that the mask begins to stop. So I want that area to be colored with the gray water paint that I'm using for this look. For the body paint, I am using water-based paints, and I'm mixing blue and white first, and then I add black to get that grayish color to match the sculpt of the head. I am using the flat brush from Narrative Cosmetics. I'm getting that painted in up under the neck, chin, into the chest area, and over to the shoulders. If you are using a sponge to apply your paint, you're going to need to work fast because a sponge will absorb a lot of the product, leaving a thin layer, which dries quicker. And if you have to push that sponge back over, it will lift the product up and you will have splotches in your makeup. Once this has dried, I go in with a Baroque palette because it has a blue grayish tinge to it. This is from ColourPop, and I'm getting that set in, and it does make that saturation it just gives it a little bit more pop. Now, to secure the bottom portion of this look, I am going in with some Spirit gum, and I'm putting that around the area where the mask ends, around the ear, and to secure that ball cap in the back, around the back of the neck. Spirit gum will remain tacky and give you some time to apply a headpiece. So that's why I'm using it today, and I'm securing that in by pressing it onto the Spirit gum I place onto the skin and holding it for a few minutes so that it stays in place. Here is the final look. Exit Eligos. He is finally out of the Necronomicon, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Please tag me in your looks if you're going to be doing this one. I would love to see your version and how you created it. And if you'd like to see sneak peeks, behind the scenes footage, or vote on my next look, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Those links are below. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time. Bye.